Hello students, I'm Dr. Kumar Rathore, Professor of Kamavritya, Faculty of Ayurvedic Science in Jyoti Vidyapeeth Women's University, Jaipur, Rajasthan. For today's session, we will talk about neonatal resuscitation part 2. In the previous section, we will talk about what is neonatal resuscitation and which conditions patients need resuscitation. In this session, we will talk what is the steps and what is the procedure of resuscitation. So before this, we will again discuss definitions of neonatal resuscitation. So series of action used of assist newborn babies who have difficulty with making the physiological transition from the intrauterine to extrauterine life. So what is the problem of preterm baby? I will talk about previously, but again, before we started the steps, so immature lungs, difficulty to ventilate, also more vulnerable to injury by PPV, immature blood vessels in the brain that are prone to hemorrhages, thin skin and large VSA, rapid heat loss, VSA, body surface area, increased susceptibility to infection, increased risk of hypovolemic shock related to small blood volume. So here is first, term gestation, breathing or crying, good tone. If yes, routine care. Provide warm earth, clean airway, if necessary, dry or ongoing evolution. If no, then warm, clear airway, if necessary, dry stimulation. Heart rate below 100, grasping or apnea. If yes, so PPV, POT and monitoring. No, labored breathing and persistent cyanosis. No, so routine care. If yes, clear airway, POT monitoring and considers CPAP. Now heart rate below 100, yes, taking ventilation, correct steps. No, that post-oxidative care is mandatory. So PPV, SPO monitoring, heart rate below 100, taking ventilator, correct steps. Heart rate below 60, consider intubation, chest compression, coordinate with PPV. So heart rate is below 60. Again, yes, so IPV, epinephrine. So initial steps. To provide warmth by placing the baby under the radiant heat source, positioning the head is the sniffing position to open the airway, clearing the airway if necessary with the bulb syringe and suction catheter, drying the baby with stimulating aspiration. The baby dried, placed skin to skin with the mother and covered with the dry linen. To maintain temperature, observation of breathing, activity and color should be ongoing. Temperature control, very low birth weight baby. Preterm babies are likely to become hypothermic despite the use of traditional technique for decreasing heat loss. Additional warming techniques. Pre-warming, the delivery room is 26 degrees centigrade. Cover the baby in plastic wrapping, food or medical grade, heat resistance plastic. Placing the baby on the exothermic mattress. Placing the baby under radiant heat. Clearing the airway. When amniotic fluid is clear, deep suctions is avoided. Nasopharyngeal bradycardia during resuscitation. Trachea in intubated baby receiving MV at NIUC. Deteriorations of pulmonary compliances, oxygenation, and decreased CBF. However, suctioning in the presence of secretion can decrease respiratory resistance. Suctioning immediately following birth should be reserved for babies who have obvious obstruction to spontaneous breathing or who require PPV. When meconium is present, meconium stain depressed infants are at increased risk to develop meconium aspiration syndrome. Tracheal suctioning has not been associated with reducing in the incidence of meconium aspiratus syndrome and mortality in this infant. These two. A particular meconium should be removed from the lung before breathing is established to remove the survival of neonate with the meconium aspiration. In water, meconium does not require suctioning. Just physical therapy and postural drainage done every 30 minutes for 2 hours. An hour's sleep thereafter for the next 6 hours may help remove residual meconium from lung. In the absence of randomized controlled trial, there is insufficient evidence to recommend a change in the current practice to performing endotracheal suctioning of non-vigorously baby with meconium stained amniotic fluid. So next is pulmonary resuscitation. So pulmonary then assessment of oxygen is needed. Partial pressure of oxygen uncompromised babies generally do not reach extrauterine value until 10 minutes following birth. So SpO2 may normally 70 to 80% are several minutes following birth. For cyanosis, optimal management of oxygen is important because either insufficient or excessive oxygenation can be harmful. So supplementary oxygen meta-analysis comparing room air versus 100% oxygen shows increased survival when resuscitation was initiated with air. Askrig R. et al. Found the preterm initiation of resuscitation with the blend of oxygen and air resulting in less hypoxemia or hyperoxemia than with either air or 100% oxygen followed by titration. If the baby is a bradycardic, means heart rate less than 60 per minute after 90 seconds of resuscitation with the lower concentration of oxygen. Oxygen concentration should be increased in 100% until recovery of normal heart rate. So PPV, positive pressure ventilation. If newborn apneic or grasping or if the heart rate is less than 100 after the initial step, start PPV, positive pressure ventilation. Initially, breathe and assisted ventilation. Initial inflations following birth, either spontaneously or assisted, create FRC. The primary measures of adequate initial ventilation is prompt, improve in heart rate. Chest wall movement should be assessed if heart rate does not improve. So, an initially peak inflation pressure of 20 centimeter H2 is effective, but 30 to 40 centimeter H2 may be required in some term baby. If pressure is not being monitored, then minimal inflation required to achieve increase in heart rate should be used. Endotracheal tube placement. Indications when endotracheal tube placement, initially endotracheal suctioning of non-vigorous meconium stained newborn if BMV is ineffective or prolonged. Newborns born without a detectable heart rate. Expected needs for continuation or prolonged ventilation for special resuscitation circumstances such as CEDH and ELBH. An appropriate size of endotracheal tube should be inserted and the tip of the tube placed 1 to 2 centimeter below the vocal cord. Distance from the tip of the tube to the gums is 7, 8, 9, 10 centimeter in 1, 2, 3 and 4 kg infant respectively. A small gas leak should be present between the endotracheal tube and trachea when ventilation pressure is 15 to 25 centimeter H2. So appropriate size of tube is 2.5 centimeter tube in units. Weight is 1.5 kg less than 3.0 tube in 1.5 to 2.5 kg and 3.5 tube for more than 2.5 kg infant. So probably increased heart rate is the best indicator that the tube is the endobronchial tree are provide effective ventilation. Exchange CO2 detection in the recommended method is confirmation of EDT placement. Poor or absent pulmonary blood flow may be false negative result. Other clinical indications for correct endotracheal tube placements are condensation and mist of EDT, chest movement, presence of equal breath sound, bilaterally improve the skin color and a special supplement oxygen. Because the chest is a small, breathing sounds are well transmitted within the thorax. A difference in the breath sound between the two sides of the chest should raise suspicions of pneumothorax, atelectasis, and congenital abnormalities of the lung. Presence of loud breath sounds over the stomach suggests tracheoesophageal fistula. Failure of adequate ventilate the lungs at birth may make hypoxemia worse and leads to CNS damage or even death. So administration of surfactant. It is used resulting in significant improvement in the outcome of preterm. The incidence of pulmonary gas leak, HMD death, PPD, and pulmonary interstitial emphysema are lower after surfactant use. Administration as liquid. Surventa at the rate 4 ml per kg, Eurosurf 2.5 ml per kg into trachea at birth. So next is vascular resuscitation. Cardiac massage. It is very important. Indicate when heart rate less than 60 per minute despite adequate PPV with O2 for 30 seconds. Rescue should ensure that assisted ventilation is being delivered optimally before starting chest compression because ventilation is the most effective action and chest compression are likely to complete with effective ventilation. Compression should be delivered on the lower third of the sternum to the depth of 1/3 are the epidiameter of chest. Techniques: compression with two thumbs with fingers encircling the chest, supporting the back. Pressure with two fingers with the second hand support the back. This figure shows that the two thumb encircle hand technique may be generate higher peak systolic and coronary perfusion pressure than the two fingers technique, so recommended in newborn. Compression and ventilation should be coordinated to avoid simultaneous delivery. The chest should be permitted to re-expand fully during relaxation, but rescuer's thumb should not leave the chest. Compression to ventilation's ratio 3:1 means 120 events per minute. It's a maximized ventilation at 90 compression and 30 breath. Thus, each event will be allotted in a half second with exhalation occurring during the first compression after each ventilation. 3:1 compression to ventilation ratio is used where ventilation comprise in the primary cause, but rescuer should consider using high ratios 15:2 if the arrest is believed to be cardiac origin. So respiration, heart rate, and oxygenation should be reassessed periodically, and coordinated chest compression and ventilation should continue until the spontaneous heart rate more than 60 per minute. Avoid frequent interruption by compression, as they will compromise artificially maintenance of systemic perfusion and maintenance of coronary blood flow. So, if the neonate's condition does not improve rapidly with ventilation and tactile stimulation, the umbilical artery catheter should be inserted. Most preterm neonates weigh 1250 grams at birth, and 1 to 3% of term neonates require a umbilical artery catheter during resuscitation. So, resuscitation drugs. Bradycardia is usually at the result of inadequate lung inflation or profound hypoxemia, and establish adequate ventilation is the most important step. If heart rate remains lower less than 60 per minute, despite 1 minute of adequate ventilation and chest compression with 100% oxygen, adrenaline and volume expansion, and both are indicated. So IV the preferred route, UVC, umbilical venous cord, is preferred to intraosseous. Recommended IV dose 0.01 and 0.03 mg per kg per dose. The tracheal dose is higher, 0.05 to 1.1 mg per kg, 1:10,000. To be considered while IVSS is being obtained. Follow with PPV flush not recommended. Volume expansion, detection of hypovolemia. Measure the arterial BP and by physical examination, pale skin color, poor capillary refilling time, poor skin perfusion, extremities are cold, pulses radially posterior tibial are weak or absent, and temperature. So CPV measurement are helpful in detecting hypovolemia and determining the adequacy of fluid replacement. Normal CPV in neonates is 2.8 centimeter water. If CPV is less than 2 centimeter, H2O hypovolemia susceptible. Care should be taken to avoid giving volume expander rapidly because rapid infusion of large volume have been associated with hypertension and IVH. Hypertension may disturb the intracerebral vessel and cause intracranial hemorrhages if cerebrovascular autoregulation is absent. Post resuscitation care is very important. Babies who require resuscitation are at risk for deteriorations after their vital signs have returned to normal. Once adequate ventilation and circulation has been established, the infant should be maintained in or transferred to an environment where close monitoring and anticipatory care can be provided. So monitoring required may include oxygen saturations, heart rate and ECG, respiration rate and pattern, blood glucose measurement, blood gas analysis, food balance and nutrition, blood pressure, temperature, and neurological. So here in role of glucose, one with the lower blood glucose level are at increased risk of brain injury. So maintain blood glucose more than 2.5 millimole per liter. So here is risk factor of neonatal resuscitation, maternal factor, fetal factor, and intrapartum. Maternal factor is this is bleeding, second or third trimester, PIH, substance abuse, drug, DM, chronic illness, maternal pyrexia, maternal infection, amnioitis, heavy sedation, previous fetal or neonatal death, fetal multiple gestations, large for dates, IUGR, alloimmune hemolytic disease, polyhydramnios, oligohydramnios, reduced fetal development before onset of labor, congenital abnormalities, etc. Intrapartum, no reassuring PHR, pattern of CTG, abnormal presentation, prolapsed cord, prolapsed labor, prolonged labor, APH, meconium in the amniotic fluid, narcotic administration of mother within 4 hours of birth, forceps birth, vacuum assistant, ventouse birth, maternal GE. So that's all about neonatal resuscitation, and in this session we will discuss what is the steps and procedure of neonatal resuscitation. So I hope this session is very beneficial and informative to you. Thank you.